Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Fit Fueled Female. I wasn't exactly planning to record this particular episode, but I've learned that life doesn't ask permission before it knocks the wind out of you. I'm recording this just a couple of days after a wreck that wasn't an accident. A woman followed me and hit me on purpose. But let me back up. I was on a business trip in Oklahoma City and I'd been up most of the night. A bit anxious about a work situation. I woke up early, immediately checked my emails, still a bit spun up about it. But I told myself, you know what? Control what you can, stick to your routine. So I got dressed and headed out to a local Orange Theory class about 15 minutes away. On the way, I played my morning prayer, something I always do to center myself, and then I called my husband and kids just to hear their voices. That's how I started the day, grounded. And then I never made it to class. Because out of nowhere, without warning, without time to react, I was hit. She rammed into me. The first hit, I was stunned. What's going on? The second hit, I knew I had to get off the road. Something isn't right. The third hit, that's when it clicked. This is intentional, and I'm being targeted. I'm being followed. This is not an accident. That final hit spun my car. I was still on the phone with my husband and the kids. They heard all of it. And in that moment, I wasn't wondering if it was road rage. I was thinking, someone is trying to kill me. It was all a blur. I was going 70, 75 miles an hour. She was going 90. And yet, somehow, I'm here. What's even harder to wrap my head around is this. I was on a highway. I crossed 3 lanes of traffic, spun across a major road. There should have been a 10-car pileup. But somehow, traffic cleared or paused or something. And I can't explain that except to say I was being protected. In the middle of the chaos, the spinning, the noise, the sheer terror, I felt something. An aura, a bubble. Like I was being held in something I can't explain. I know it sounds strange, but it was real. It was protective. And the truth is, I shouldn't even be here telling you this story. But I am. Somehow, by the grace of God, I walked away. And later that night, as my husband hugged me and whispered, "Did that lady know who she was dealing with? Strong car, but even stronger girl," I realized he was right. She didn't rattle me. She tried, but I'm still here. But if I'm being honest, the rattling came later. When the adrenaline wore off, when the shock settled, when I realized I was replaying the moment over and over, flinching at sounds, second-guessing everything, jumpy on the highway or in my car, that's the thing no one prepares you for. Trauma doesn't always hit in the moment. Sometimes it waits until you're lying in bed trying to pretend you're okay, and then it floods you. And you have to choose, not just once, but every day, to come back to yourself. And here's the thing. The more I processed it, the more I realized that woman wasn't just some angry driver. She felt like a physical manifestation of the enemy. Because the closer I've drawn to God, the more I've leaned into my faith, into the calling, into his mission, the louder the enemy has gotten. And on that day, he didn't whisper, he rammed. But he didn't win. The outside of my car, well, it's not as great as me. And me, I am still shaking. But let's keep things real. Not only did I miss that workout, but after I made my 911 call, I immediately called Orange Theory in full-blown tears to beg them not to charge me the $12 no-show fee. Like, hi, I was just violently run off the road and almost died, and I swear I meant to come to class. In fact, I was on my way. Because trauma and type A, they don't cancel each other out. And then, just when I thought I was completely alone in this, a man showed up, a witness. He had seen everything. He followed the woman who hit me, got her license plate, and came back just to make sure I was okay. He didn't know me anything, but he showed up anyway, and I will never forget him. Later that day, when I finally caught my breath, I laced up my shoes and went for a run. Not for a workout, not for goals, but because it was the only thing that helped me feel grounded again. And somewhere in that run, it hit me. This isn't just about a wreck. It's not just about being shaken or scared. It's part of a pattern, a string of breakdowns and blindsides that all seem to hit at once. A few weeks ago, I was sick with COVID in the hospital with a parasite from another work trip. This week, my son was in the urgent care for something he did to his leg. And on top of that, it's also the anniversary of my mom's passing. So no, I wasn't planning to record this, but after surviving yet another hard thing, I couldn't ignore the message anymore. I stopped asking, why is this happening? And started asking, what is this trying to tell me? But unfortunately, right now, I don't have a tidy ending for this or all of the answers. I just have my breath, my body, my belief that this story, as unplanned and unraveled as it feels, it's still part of something bigger. And if it reaches one woman who needs to know she's not alone in her storm, then maybe this wreck wasn't wasted. Which leads me to my first lesson. You don't get to schedule the storm. I didn't plan for any of this. I planned for a workout, a work day, a trip where I stuck to my routine, stayed disciplined, knocked out my to-do list, and posted a few things about it on Instagram later. But I didn't plan to be violently hit by a stranger on the highway. I didn't plan to spin across 3 lanes of traffic and somehow not be hit. I didn't plan for my children to hear it all happen live or for my husband to be helpless on the other end of the phone. I didn't plan for my trauma to collide with the anniversary of my mother's passing in the exact same week. But that's the thing about storms. They don't show up on your calendar, they don't wait until you're ready, they don't care what's on your plate, and most of the time, we can't control when they come. But we can control how we show up in them. And that's what hit me the hardest. Because this wasn't the first storm I've ever walked through, but it was the first time in a long time that I didn't get angry at it. I didn't scream, why me? I didn't go numb. I didn't isolate. Instead, I dropped to my knees in gratitude. I thanked God out loud for sparing my life. I called my friends and family and leaned on them instead of pretending I was okay. I let my husband be my anchor. And yes, I had to calm him down when he was ready to go full Liam Neeson on this woman because he was about to book a one-way ticket to Oklahoma City to track her down. I told him not to. But yeah, I cried, I prayed, and you know what? This is the part that still surprises me. I prayed for her, the woman who hit me, who followed me, who tried to harm me. Not because what she did was okay, but because I knew that carrying hatred would only wreck me further. That kind of clarity didn't come out of nowhere. It came from practice, from daily faith, from muscle memory in the quiet. And that's what I want you to hear. We may not face this level of trauma every day, but we do face storms. Disappointments, rejections, stress, illness, setbacks, loneliness, loss. And how we walk through these little storms, that's what builds our survival for the big ones. That's what prepares us to say, I didn't plan for this, but I know how to breathe through it. I know where my help comes from. I know who to call, and I know who to thank. I've also started to wonder, was all of this a sign? Not just this wreck, but the sickness, the stress, the nonstop turbulence I've felt lately? Because it's almost like a pattern I can't ignore. Every one of these breakdowns I've had recently, the parasite, the COVID, the exhaustion, the wreck, is pulling me further from my routine, my family, my faith, and maybe even the future I know I'm being called to. I don't think God caused the wreck, but I do believe he used it. Used it to whisper, or let's be honest, shout, are you listening yet? I've been praying for clarity, for direction, for some kind of nudge, and I think this was it. Not a punishment, not a coincidence, but a holy interruption, a rerouting, a wake-up call I couldn't ignore. So if you're in a season that feels off or chaotic or harder than it should be, maybe ask yourself what I'm finally asking too. Is this trying to get my attention? Because I think it got mine. I'm pausing, I'm reflecting, I'm taking a hard look at what's been filling me up and what's been emptying me out. I'm asking bigger questions about the pace I've been running and the pressure I've been carrying. I'm not making any sudden moves, but I am listening more closely. Because when something this jarring happens, you don't just keep sprinting. You stop, you breathe, you ask, what now? And for once, you wait for the answer. I don't know exactly where God's leading me, but I have this quiet faith that fit-fueled female is a part of it. So I'm pouring more into this, into you, into this message. And I'm trusting that wherever it goes, it's not just for me. It's for someone else who's been praying for a sign. So no, you don't get to schedule the storm, and I didn't either. But when you've done the daily work, the prayer, the discipline, the faith, the asking for help and clarity, you don't have to fear it either. Which leads me to lesson number 2. You can be wrecked and still rise. When I say I was wrecked, I don't just mean the car. I mean me. I was trembling, crying, numb, in shock, alone in a city with a car that is maybe totaled, trying to figure out how to get back home. I caught a flight, and as I'm pacing the airport in my dirty clothes from the run, holding my tears back or just barely trying to, I couldn't do it anymore. And a man, a total stranger, looked at me and gently asked, "Are you okay?" And I just lost it. I couldn't hold it in. I cried like the kind of cry you only do when your body finally realizes, I survived, but I am not okay. And I'm not ashamed of that, because here's what I know to be true. You can be strong and still broken. You can be composed in one breath and crumbling in the next. And it doesn't make you any less powerful, it makes you human. I called my boss in tears to say I wouldn't make it to work. I apologized because that's what we're conditioned to do, right? To apologize for being emotional. He was so kind and understood and helped, but I still felt that guilt creep in, like that little voice whispering, pull yourself together, girl. But I didn't, because I couldn't. And here's the thing, that was the strength. I've already spent a week pushing through tough things, just the daily grind of life. I was already running on fumes before the wreck even happened, so when it all cracked open, I let it. I called my husband, pulled into a gas station, and tried to breathe. He told me, with all the sincerity in the world, babe, go in and get a Sprite. Because apparently he saw in a movie that Sprite helps people in shock. Yeah, I don't know. Fit fueled female, order a Sprite. Yeah, no. I went for a run, like I said. But I went for that run because I needed to feel my feet hit the ground. I needed to remember I was still here. I needed to remind my body we made it. So, yeah, I was wrecked, but I was still moving, still rising. So, if you're listening to this and you've ever felt like the wheels have come off, if you've ever cried in a public place, called your boss apologizing for being human, trying to hold it all together, and then fall apart anyway, I want you to hear this. That's what rising looks like. It's not always graceful, it's not always strategic. Sometimes it's messy, snotty, shaky, and still sacred. Because being wrecked doesn't mean you're weak. It means you felt it, you lived through it, and you keep going. And that's the kind of strength no one can steal. At the beginning of this year, I named it the year of opportunity. And wow, has that been true? But not in the way I imagined. Opportunity didn't show up as ease or clarity or open doors with perfect timing. It showed up as chaos, as illness, as trauma, as pressure, as pain. It showed up as COVID, as a parasite, as a wreck that could have taken my life, as a visit to the ER with my son. And I'm not asking why me, but I've asked more than once, when does it end? And maybe the answer is it doesn't. Maybe the real opportunity isn't in the absence of hard things, but in how I meet them, how I rise from them, how I reframe them. Because if this year has shown me anything, it's that growth doesn't always feel good, but it's still growth. And the strongest parts of me, they weren't built in peace, they were forged in the storm. So if your year has felt like a string of you've got to be kidding me moments, you're not alone. You're not cursed, you're not broken. You're being called, stretched, refined. You're being planted in something deeper than comfort. And maybe, just maybe, this is the year you rise through it. Not after the storm, but in it. Which leads me to my power move. Check the storm kit. I want you to take a second and ask yourself this. What's in your storm kit? Because here's the truth. The storm is coming. Maybe not today, maybe not like mine, but life doesn't let any of us avoid it forever. And when it hits, and it will, the question isn't, will I break? It's, what have I been building inside of me when everything on the outside falls apart? So this week, I want you to check your kit. Who are the people you can call? Not just when it's convenient, but when it's chaos. What grounds you? Prayer, breathwork, journaling, movement, stillness? What truth do you want to hear when the fear starts shouting? Your power move this week isn't to fix everything. It's to prepare for whatever's next. Fill your storm kit with real tools, with scripture, with honesty, with phone numbers, with reminders of who you are. Because when life hits and you're on your knees in a gas station parking lot or crying in an airport bathroom or skipping a workout because you barely made it out alive, you won't have to figure it all out. You'll just have to reach for what's already there. And when you do, that's when you'll remember. You may be shaken, but you're never alone. So let's wrap this episode up with what's been fueling me lately. Honestly, some really simple mindset shifts. I've been reading The Universe Has Your Back by Gabrielle Bernstein, and while I'm always anchored in my faith, this book has helped me reframe a lot of what's been coming at me lately. It's not preachy, it's not heavy, but the way she breaks down fear versus love, resistance versus surrender, it's been exactly what I needed in this season. One of her lines that stuck with me was something like, when you think you've surrendered, surrender more. And that's kind of where I am right now. Letting go of control, releasing the constant need to carry it all, trusting that the same God who wrapped me in that protective bubble on a highway in Oklahoma City is the same one walking me through every decision after it. So if you need something that helps soften your thoughts, rest your perspective, and bring you back to center, that book's been fueling me. And honestly, so have you. The messages, the encouragement, the community around Fit Fueled Female, it's been reminding me why I do this. Why I share, why I speak, why I'm vulnerable, why I keep rising even when I'm wrecked. So thank you for being here, for listening, and for walking through this storm with me. As always, stay fit, stay fueled, and I can't wait to see you next time.